close out this episode with a game I've actually played before, but not beat. I'm doing the first half of Pac-Man World. This is one of the 3 games that came with my PlayStation 1 back on Christmas '99. It wasn't the one I played the most, but it also wasn't the one I played the least of the 3. There's actually a story to this game too. Pac-Man's dog, Chomp Chomp, yeah he's got a dog, is coming in with a birthday present, finds a hole in the ground and gets dragged in. And he's not the only one. Pac-Baby and the Puka from Dig Dug are dragged up into the air by an anchor, Professor Pac-Man is abducted by aliens, Junior Pac-Man's hat is stolen, followed by the rest of him. And finally, while setting up the table for Pac-Man's 20th birthday dinner, even though this game came out on his 19th anniversary, don't even know you're an husband, Miss Pac-Man is taken by a familiar shape. Also, I just noticed that even though Pac-Man's dog looks like he belongs in the same world, along with this bird at the beginning of the intro, he also has just a regular real-life cat. Pac-Man comes home from what I assume is work, but I just wonder, what does he do? He sees a birthday present just left on the floor and his house is a mess and family gone. With that, we can start the game. Quest is the main game, Mazes I'll get to next episode, and Classic is just the original arcade Pac-Man game, which I'll not be doing because it's just a bonus and doesn't unlock anything in this game, which is what I'm doing despite how much sense it makes to start with that game. One more cutscene though before we really start. Pac-Man finds an invitation for a party on Ghost Island, also claims he will be there in person. On Ghost Island itself, one ghost spots Pac-Man approaching on a boat. He rushes down to the party and reports to his boss, Tockman, this giant robot thing that seems to be trying to become Pac-Man.
The Pac-Man! I mean that pathetic fool, trying badly I might add, to impersonate you, who is clearly the real Pac-Man.
I thought you had captured Pac-Man!
We did, see? Oops.
Turns out the plan was to just capture Pac-Man, not his family. Okay, I get that Pac-Man's family look mostly the same, but the dog, and the Puka. After that intro, I put right into the first level, Buccaneer Beach. Right away, we're shown that the dots and power pellets from the arcade game transitioned over into the platforming, along with collectible fruits and even some little maze areas. Of course, the power pellets turn ghost blue and let Pac-Man eat them. In this game, it refills his health too. One of Pac-Man's main skills in this game is the butt bounce. It does things you would expect it to do, kill enemies and reach higher platforms. The dots can also be used as projectiles and even charged up to cause a small explosion. I don't use it that often though. The swimming too, no air to deal with thankfully. Holding the button while surfacing causes a high jump. After pressing a couple switches, we run into some badoings. They lead me to this area that contains the other power-up of the game, Chrome Pac-Man. As you'd expect, it makes him invincible and allows him to walk underwater for a short period of time. And finally, the last technique, the Rev Roll. It's basically like the spin dash from Sonic, lets him go up hills and ram himself into enemies. Although I'd say it's the least useful way of taking on enemies. They move and Pac-Man always shoots off in a straight line, so it leaves the butt bounce as the more accurate attack. The other use of the Rev Rolls and these Rev Pads, there's a few different kinds, some like this open gate, some are floating platforms, or elevators as the game calls them. After pressing a pair of blue switches, a dot with an arrow appears. These make Pac-Man fly through the entire chain of dots, usually with a reward during it, such as a fruit. The last thing this level teaches is the fruit doors. Swap the fruit shown on the dot for the reward inside. Nothing significant here since this is just a tutorial level. With myself reminded of everything in the game, I walk into the token that ends the level. After beating the level, we get this machine that takes all the dots and remaining fruit we collected and use them to try and win more lives with a slot. I just end up mashing the button to get through it. Now we're on the hub world of Ghost Island for the first time. I don't actually have to do the game in order, I have access to the first 3 sets of levels from the beginning, but I'm going to do it in the boring normal way. Next up is Corsair's Cove. Now I have the chance, I'd like to praise the soundtrack, or at least the fact that Tommy Tallarico managed to get so much use out of those few short jingles from the arcade games. Like the intro, and the intermission jingle. Along with the intro from Miss Pac-Man. I thought the title screen music being the first intermission theme from Miss Pac-Man. It was something I didn't notice playing this for the first time back when I was 7, but nearly 20 years later, I appreciate the effort. Eventually I open a strawberry door for another collectible, letters. Considering the first one is a P, I think you can guess what it's going to spell. The A, I found an underwater chest I need the chrome power up to open. Eventually I worked my way up to the rooftops and dropped down to find the C behind another strawberry door. A little later I passed the door with the Galaxian starship. These ones are especially important. I backtrack a tiny bit to find I nearly missed the M, and the cherry, along with the cherry door that creates a chain of dots onto the other side. Said chain takes me to the starship and the second A. I open the door and am taken to a maze. Every level has a maze based around the theme of the level. Most of these are a little easier than a regular Pac-Man maze since you still have a health bar instead of just dying in one hit. But some of them can be bastards, as you'll see later. Gotta do them all for 100%. It does sting a little bit though, dying just before grabbing the last dot. With it picked up, it's back to the level. I get the end by bouncing off this barrel onto this big post, which means that's all the collectibles in the level. Well, not quite. This chest underwater has a key in it. There's one of these in each world, and they're for freeing Pac-Man's stolen family. The keys aren't always in the same level as them though. But thankfully they're never in a level after the one the family member is in, so no having to replay levels just to open a single cage. After opening one more strawberry door and pressing the button to activate the cannon switch, I blow up the cage, keeping me from the token and end the level. Collecting all the letters in the level transports you to a bonus level. Each world has its own unique one, the part one involves cutting fruit and lives underwater in the time limit. Third level is Crazy Cannonade. Things getting a little harder, water has been swapped out to the bottomless pits, but it's still easy. Except for this one tiny section of roof kicking my ass. The roof in question having a set of switches that makes the P appear on top of it, followed by the A being in the barrel a little later. You know, I don't think I even had trouble with these sections as a shitty kid, but jumping across the tops of these cannons still makes me nervous as hell. Right after them is an apple, I have to backtrack to the door to get the C. I still have to jump across the cannons again though. Why is it throwing me off? It's easy. It was nothing compared to this terrifyingly close jump right after. A door leading to an upper area gets me the Galaxian ship and into the maze. It's a basic maze, I had an easier time doing this one than the first one though. To make up for that, I suffer what I'm hoping is going to stay the most embarrassing death I have, except for maybe my nervousness around the cannons being proven right. However, I realised I missed something and quit the level to start again. You see, there was an apple door near the Galaxian door and I was keeping an eye out for the apple to open it. I figured out I'd most likely gone way too far into the level and missed it. Turns out I was on a plank poking out really close to the door. I was right to go up and get it since that door had the end behind it. This time I get that banana on top of the cannon without dying and use it on the door next to them to get the second A. Then just barely miss the next cannon, then undershoot the jump and gently roll to my doom. After making it across I get one more power up that's so rare I forgot about it until I was writing this, the next blow to butt bounce. And close to the end I find the N hidden just off to the front of the screen. Then after getting back up realise it isn't that hidden and I was going that way anyway. After taking a elevator up an exploding tower, I find the Puka and free it with the key. That thing is a lot smaller than it looked in the intro. Right next to it is the goal. After leaving the level I chat to Puka one more time before it leaves, and then to the first boss level, HMS Windbag. It starts simply enough, being chased and avoiding fire from a flying pirate ship with angry eyes on its sail. You can all relate. Next section has a series of blue switches for reflecting cannon fire. Gotta time it right though because I don't stay up very long. It also has the easiest to avoid attack ever, with 4 cannonballs and the fruit slowly making their way up to each of the switches. About 5 or so hits altogether and it goes down. That leaves me at 13% of the game complete. This was a fun world. Share that on the next one. Once I'm out, I leave the pirate world behind for the ruins. I'm just going to say this is the worst part of the game. You wouldn't think that though after just seeing the first level, Crisis Cavern. This one isn't too bad, but there are some things that will become far worse after this level. Not another level long before a chain of dots brings me to the P, there's also a lot of walking around in the dark on this level. Next up are the pressure pads to drop rocks on you. But it didn't cause me much trouble here though. A dot chain created by the switch in a fruit door leads me to a short set of platforms with the first A at the end. After that we're into the lava section and maybe this is my most embarrassing death. Once I'm back into a normal ruin section I meet my biggest enemy so far. These tiles almost instantly slam a spike on your head with no chance to react. There's a lot of these in the next level. Going down and I find the sea hidden away in this dark area. And right after I get another one of those tiles that blends in with the brown floor and the lack of light. The only clue is a water drop, but you may get it on screen in between drops and end up with no warning. Or you just end up with this one here where it's almost impossible to see. At the end of this awful area I find the M behind a cherry door, and in this nice trap-free area a blue button behind the bell door makes a elevator appear. This one brings me down to the second A. Does anyone else hope Pac-Man's mother is called Pac-Ma? After making my way across a series of elevators I find a switch behind a fruit door that opens a hole into the swimming section. At the end of it is a chrome power-up so I can go back and break the chest for the Galaxian ship. I don't have to take it very far though since the door for it is right by the exit of this area. This is where the mazes start getting evil. See those rocks falling from the ceiling? And I have both hazards and ghosts to deal with at the same time. Not too bad this one, but I was killed by a falling rock once. And right after I leave I get given this spiked log with really dodgy collision. Another fruit door with a switch in it gives me one more elevator to another door with the N in it before I can finally leave this place. The ruins bonus level involves navigating elevators past steam pipes to collect fruit. Getting up is a bit annoying, but going down with the chrome power up from the top is much better. That's actually the first time I've ever beaten that level. As a kid I beat the pirate world and all but the boss in the third, and I'm only stalling so I can hold off talking about Manic Mines, the worst level in the game. Starts off simply enough. Go down a slope, pass a door, get an apple, go back and open the door for the P. Then it's navigating a dark area with trapped tiles to open the melon door for the first A. I actually got a little lost here since it was so dark. Getting out of that and actually being able to see things again was the only happy moment I had in this level. And it was ruined when one of these surprisingly difficult to time jumps over a minecart killed me. Then needing to backtrack up a slope with a rev roll got me killed by a ghost I had no way of knowing would be in that spot. After opening that door and eating all the ghosts there, I go back down the slope and swap an orange for the sea. In that same section I get the ship and enter the maze. This time the hazard is burning rocks bursting from the lava. Thankfully they make up for it with less dots than the last one. I make my way up and away from the lava, and I find the aim on the inside of another fruit door. Then it's dodging tornadoes and missing the moving platforms when they get close. After that it's getting my ass kicked by the corner of the bedouin. Imagine if this were being put on the internet for everyone to see. That'd be so embarrassing. At the top I get a fruit and have to backtrack to the section with the tornadoes. It wasn't worth it though, because it was just for some dots. Continuing forward I open this door to reveal another Galaxian door. You see, every other world in this game is 3 levels and the boss, but the ruins is just 2 levels, which left an extra maze without a level to put it in, so this one has 2. Right below the door is an underwater maze. This is where I discovered if you press the jump button while wiggling left and right, you can rocket up the water. Once again I have to find the chrome parrot to break the underwater chests and get the second ship. This maze is easy, which is why I got hit 3 times within the first few seconds. I was just making up for the lack of hazards, honest. Despite that, I managed this one without dying. Want some utter bollocks though? Rev-rolling up a ramp that drops you right below a crusher. The damage on the way back up too. After navigating this area, I get the fruit of the door holding the second A. Next up is the part that almost made me have a meltdown. See this door here? I need a banana. That's not the whole story, by the way. Apparently I'm supposed to eat all the ghosts in the area where Chomp Chomp is being held to make it appear. But it travels and I die looking for it. I can't get it back, because even though the dots and the pellets reappear after dying, the ghosts don't. Fun fact, I didn't even notice it floating around the corner of the maze until watching this back. I actually had no clue as to why this was happening. This is right at the end of the level, by the way. Got no choice but to leave and redo the last 20 or so minutes. After working my way back, including getting all the other letters and doing both mazes again, I get it, but get killed again. Although I do keep the banana, there's still a problem. So I use the banana to get to a blue switch to make a elevator appear that gets me to the key so that I can free Chomp Chomp. So what about this other banana door right before the level goal with the last letter in it? Notice I died before eating all the ghosts this time. I think getting all of them in one go would make a second appear, but since I only got one chance at that, it's time to end the level and go through it all a third time. I go through it all again, collecting all the letters again, then use my 1 banana left to get the end. About an hour and a half I spent on that level and fuck it right off. But at least things are gonna get better now? No. Because I still had the boss to deal with, Anubis Rex. It starts off with a chase sequence, Pac-Man running away from an FPS mummy hand and dodging spears. There's not much to say about it, it's short and not very difficult, sometimes I accidentally walk into the side of a spear. The main problem is the main fight. It involves jumping across lava-filled gaps with rocks shooting up and using the rev pads to open up the stone hands. There are 4 rev pads to use before the heart appears, but you've got to rev roll into it quick. Try butt bounce or just do it in more than 3 trillionths of a second and it slams shut on you. Hitting the heart destroys one of the gems on its forehead. Second phase has it spitting out tornadoes. They float above lava and are almost undodgeable. You could jump over to the next platform while it temporarily sinks below into the gaps, but that just means there's a good chance a rock will be out and you're hitting that instead. You'd think staying on the phase you're already on when you die would make it better. Not really. Especially not when Pac-Man is clearly above the platform then suddenly snaps into the side of it and falls to his death. I do manage to hit the heart this time too, only to get caught in the hands and dragged up to the nose where I'm killed despite still having health. And stage 3 keeps the tornadoes and has flaming rocks crashing into the rev pads too. This absolutely leaves me with situations where it's impossible to avoid damage. Can't forget about finally working through all that shit and opening up the hands for 83 hazards to block my path and run out my 10th of the microsecond time limit. That's not the last stage either. Stage 4 keeps all that stuff and adds a laser that sweeps the entire stage, giving me 4 to dodge at once and sometimes have me surrounded in every direction with no choice but to take damage. So everything I just described, imagine that going on for another half an hour. Between this and that last level I was starting to have doubts that this game was ever good, and I only thought it was because I was 7 when I first played it. I'm going to spoil things a little by saying that it's just this section of the game that I despised. I don't think this is a bad game at all, but after not playing it for years and being met with this so early in didn't leave things looking good. Don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the boss was unfinished and the developers ran out of time to balance it, and I think that could apply to this entire world. It explains why it has 1 less level and the second one having 2 mazes, it explains the dodgy collision I've experienced, it also explains how I could beat all the other levels available at the beginning as a kid, including all of the next world apart from the boss, but never get anywhere with this one. When I did it though, I think that's the most satisfying death of a giant stone head I've ever seen. I actually had to stop and take a break for a bit because I got so angry at the game. On a positive note, it's all uphill from here. Nothing anywhere near that bad will appear for the rest of the game. Time to move on to the third world, the space one, starting with Space Race. All of the usual space stuff is here, force fields and lasers and the like. The P is on a platform right next to the start. The first A is above these disappearing lasers, and the Galaxian ship is just out in the open here. After getting a cherry and backtracking to swap it for the C, I enter the maze. The big gimmick to this one is the disappearing and reappearing lasers. Kind of annoying actually having to just stop and wait for it to disappear before continuing. You know, after the last world, it felt nice to take damage from moving hazards and actually feel like it was my own fault. After climbing to the top of this wall, Vim appears after breaking this chest. And not long after, the second day is behind a banana door. It's also nice having a level take less than 15 minutes. Close to the end I get this terrifying moment where I got trapped on a corner with no life left, but barely managed to dodge the laser. Once I get to the top and temporarily turn them off, I can grab this bell and open the door at the bottom for the end. I did die on the way back up though. The goal is just past the laser switch. The space bonus stage has me hitting switches to create force fields to walk over to collect the fruit. Up next is Far Out. The first proper obstacle in this place roids up the disappearing laser obstacles from the last level as I demonstrate that my real world sense of self-preservation is much stronger than my in-game one. At least I hope so. The P is above the quickly disappearing force field I have to switch on, and I get hit twice in a row and killed by the most obvious telegraph hazard in the level. Up a laser-covered staircase I decide to shove my face into repeatedly, I find the Galaxian ship, and die backtracking to its door. At least that just put me right in front of it. This one has two different colours of lasers that disappear and reappear at separate times. Back in the main level I take a chain of dots over to this area where I have to dodge disappearing lasers while going on a elevator. Professor Pac-Man is at the top, but let's ignore him for now. After hitting a blue switch to activate one back at the bottom, I check out all these platforms I skipped on the way up. I do miss a couple on the way back down though. The second blue switch gives me the key, and on the way up I get the A. I free Professor Pac-Man, but there's still this apple door with C in it that I can't open. Thankfully the apple is only 10 seconds further into the level and I get the C. A little further on and breaking this chest makes the M appear, and a pair of blue switches on the opposite ends of these tilting platforms gives me the second A. And despite landing on the platform, I just fall through it and die. It's the only time in these space levels where I can say death wasn't my fault. The top of the next set of platforms has a chest with some bananas, which opens up this nearby door to give me the end. Last set piece of this level is turning a platform into a giant maze before finding the goal. After seeing off the old man, it's time for level 3, Gimme Space. And within seconds of starting I hit a switch to create a ball of light that teleports me to the P. Past some moving lasers and tilting platforms, I find the first A on a platform attached to a Bedoin. Also, this strawberry was terrifying since I had to precisely rev roll onto this platform and not bounce off to my death. And already I'm finding the C at the top. Right after I've created a circular maze which is far more nerve-wracking to walk along than it looks. Hitting another switch creates another portal. He drops me in front of a few platforms with a laser between them that never blinks out. I didn't figure out how to get past it unharmed, but they were kind enough to put quite a few pieces of health on there, so I just took the damage. At the top, pressing the switch creates 3 paths. The left path brings me to the M. The right path gives me the bell I need to open the door on the centre path for the second A. Back along the right path to continue the level. After climbing this tower I find the ship off to the side, also really close to the door. This maze has meteorites crashing down at certain spots. Easier than the last two I'd say, considering I did it without dying. Going towards the end of the level I carefully climb onto the ledge of this platform and drop down to get the end, despite it being far more convenient to just drop down the other side. After that it's just a couple size changing platforms and I finish the level. All that's left now is the boss, King Galaxian. This is going to give me some closure. I got to this guy 20 years ago but was never able to beat him, and I couldn't play the game for years because I was bad at taking care of my PS1 discs. Coming back to this also reminds me that this boss would be the first time I'd ever heard of Galaxian at all. Anyway, the level is actually a shooter, blowing up enemy ships and asteroids. It's fairly long too. Eventually I'm passing over a giant ship and dodging lasers, and at the end I meet King Galaxian himself. To deal with this guy I have to shoot out all of his eyes. He uses the tractor beam from Galaga to drag Pac-Man in for damage, add to that the Galaga music remix playing while fights him and the fact that he's shaped similarly to the original Galaxian sprite, this makes the boss fight appreciate a lot more now that I see the tributes in it. It can still be a challenge though, just a good challenge, not what Anubis Rex was. We're down to one eye, he starts spitting out aliens with force fields, which do kill me the first time. However, despite all that, I managed to prove that I at 26 am better at games than I was at 7. And what kind of self-improvements have you made in the last 20 years? That is where I'll be leaving this episode, currently at 42% completion with everything that's coming up next being completely new to me. So far this game is decent, but that second world does drag things down. We'll see how I feel next episode after I experience levels I never could reach back then. First thing this episode, I'm doing the other half of Pac-Man World. As I said last time, I'm into new territory now, starting with the funhouse area and clowning around. I jump across some spinning platforms, hit a switch to raise some more platforms to create a staircase, get a cherry from a chest and backtrack to open its door for the first P of this episode. In the very next area I get defeated by the concept of the moving switch and rocket myself to my death. The switch on the last of these platforms gives me the melon I need to open the door for the first A. In a later area, a blue switch rotates a platform allowing me to get to the C. This level also has these annoying bumper car enemies that can only be killed by rev rolling them off the edge of the level. This one nearly gets me killed. At the top of this ghost covered staircase is a switch creating a dot chain that gets me the M. I pass some spinning platforms with switches that each give the fruit and swap one of them for the second A at the end. After that is pressing 3 switches while dealing with bumper cars to lower some stairs. At the top of them is the Galaxian door. Some more spinning platforms and the ship is in a chest at the end. The gimmick of this maze is blocks that open and close to block off certain paths, but they do it so infrequently it never ends up being a problem and I do this one without dying once. I pass through a few floors of cannon fire and after I'm out I open a melon door for the end. Right next to that is the goal. The funhouse bonus stage has me jumping across balloons acting as very small platforms while trying to get the fruit. For some reason here I just stopped and ran out of time, but I don't remember why since I'm writing this 3 months after recording it. Level 2 of this area is Barrel Blast. First thing I do is work my way up these platforms to get a strawberry to swap for the P. The developers must have thought this part with the clown faces blowing steam was hard, so they put a chrome power up in the door before it, but it looks pretty easy to time it. The invincibility is appreciated though, so I can just ignore them and get out quicker. Instead I just get hit by every bit of steam going through this tube. On the other end of it is the first A in a chest. I find the door with the C in it, but I don't have a strawberry to open it. I then perform what I'd say is my most incompetent act in any game done so far. I didn't even try not to land on a burning platform. The strawberry is on the other side and I go back and get the C. The M isn't much further away, it's by these conveyors. And right after them is the Galaxian door. As usual, the ship is only a tiny bit further on. Next to it is a switch that creates some stairs to continue the level, but now it's time for the maze. This one has the same gimmick of paths opening and closing, nothing else really to say about it. Continuing on, the second A is in a chest out in the open in front of a checkpoint, and could someone tell me why I just bounced backwards off this platform? Across that gap is a switch that bounces you into some steam. I thought it was just a coincidence, so I tried it again, and it happened again. It's actually for returning the elevator to take it to the top. At first I thought it was just a trap. Across the top of this burning tunnel I traded a banana for the N. I also hit this blue switch to create a dot chain to a bell. I get it and open the bell door for the key. The level isn't over just yet, there's still these conveyors with faces blowing steam across them, followed by some spinning tubes, the scariest rev roll ever, another scariest rev roll ever, and finally the end of the level. Gotta be honest, that last section was a bit of a pain. Nowhere near Manic Minds level though, thankfully. This time I actually tried the bonus stage. The third level here is Spin Dizzy. I pass by the door with what I assume is the P seconds after starting. I go down this set of stairs with loose steps and find the fruit at the bottom, so I go back up and get the E, it's just a life. By the way, I forgot to mention it last time, but I love how Pac-Man acts as if he's on a tie prop on any kind of moving platform regardless of size. After setting off these spinning platforms, I find a cherry and backtrack to open the door that actually has the P. Going back and hitting the switch puts DOS in front of the steam blowers, revealing that there's something up there. It leads me to some balloons that lead me to the first A. Continuing on, I accidentally suicide bounce an enemy and it takes me a while to get back. This level's surprisingly long. Despite that effort, I get myself killed 10 seconds later trying to get this chest. That fruit is worth it. The door is right next to it. It has a switch that creates a dot chain that takes me to the C. One more room of spinning platforms and I finally reach a long overdue checkpoint. I'm so thankful for it too, considering what happened right after. The next area has the Galaxian door. This level isn't badly designed, but it's just so long and at this point it's starting to overstay its welcome. I press a switch to shift all this crap out of the way, and I discover that these crushers stay on top of you long enough to damage you twice. Getting back up, I second guess myself on where the crusher is going to land and get myself killed by that same one. On the way back I get caught by this one on its way back up and launched into the sky. Not high enough to skip this section sadly. Doesn't matter though because I fuck up and bounce into the side of the crusher into the gap between, and then killed by the very next one. When I finally get past it I find the Galaxian ship. Same gimmick in this maze too, moving blocks, moving on. I swear I managed to get past the crushers the second time without dying 15 times. Instead I end up catching the corner of this medallion trying to bounce on it and get rolled into the void. After getting my third or fourth spinning platform room with clown faces blowing steam in my 23rd minute on this level, I really just want it to end. Going on I find the fruit and backtrack to trade it for the M. A little bit later I find a fruit door with the second A. Finally things are speeding up. I also fall right through the floor here. Okay, I changed my mind. I actually hate this level. Especially when the next area is yet another spinning and steam room. Been in half an hour and I'm still not done. There's still this fruit door with the N behind it. Trying to find the fruit I get burned and then crushed to death. I had 16 lives when I started this level. And I get this bit with spinning platforms separated by gaps dragging me towards a burner with these plane assholes flying towards me whenever I try and jump over the gaps. Finally I get that melon and the N. Still got another of these sections though. When I got to the end and this happened, I could have destroyed something. Turned out all that switch did was reverse the movement of the platforms. See me not moving? Shown here is my total despair. Thankfully I only have to go back half the way to a platform that brings me to Pac Baby, and then finally, the goal. I'd pushed this level out of my head since playing it, and watching it back again and I remember why. At least it's not Manic Minds is the best thing I can say about it. But also at least I only had to play it once. I see off Pac Baby and into the boss, Clown Prix. This boss fight is actually a car race. I start in 16th place and of course have to finish first. I don't start off that great, missing a load of power pellets that would have given me a boost. The worst was missing every one of this line of them. Then the camera screws me and gets me to drive off the track. Second time around I jump from 11th to 4th place just going around the corner. I suppose everyone drove themselves into the abyss off screen. Then I end up pushing 3rd and 2nd place off. Then 1st place gets caught on a railing and I'm not seeing him again. But then I fuck up turning and get myself killed. It very nearly happens again. Thankfully everyone else being dead gives me time to make turns more carefully. And I win. A bit anticlimactic since there was no one else left on the track. Next world is the factory, starting with Perilous Pipes. I start this level with no extra lives, but thankfully it gives me 2 close at the beginning. I find the P in this fruit door hidden away at the bottom. The next fruit door hides a switch that blows up this block to reveal a elevator that leads me down to the first A. Rev rolling over a gap leads me to the Galaxian door, the ship being a bit further than usual, past a checkpoint even. It's quite a trek back and for the majority of it I'm hit from death. The thing with this maze is steam pipes. Only notable thing here is me getting hit by Pinky, grabbing the power pellet and eating it on the exact same moment. When I'm out I get ricocheted off the level by a rev roll only enemy. Hitting the switch near it makes a C appear. Later I press a switch to make the M appear where I can't reach it, so I try to get it by bouncing off this enemy, but that just gets me killed. Of course I get it the first time I try after dying. Then this enemy somehow nudges me off the level. The game seems to know when I'm in trouble though, since getting right past the area I find another extra life. Very close to this, the second day is floating high up, needing this platform. Moving on, I find the end in a hidden underwater section. This level turned out another long one at nearly 20 minutes, but it didn't feel anywhere near as long as Spin Dizzy. Not repeating the same kind of section so many times helped. The factory bonus stage has me using these magnet platforms to find fruit. The second level is Under Pressure. By the way, these enemies are a pain. It's very hard to book balance without getting hurt. This bit of genius is just my own fault though. This ghost and spawning where I'm standing isn't though. Regardless, this door has a switch that creates a dot chain leading to a power pellet that runs out the moment before I was about to avenge myself. The next dot chain actually helps me out though and takes me to the P. Next fruit door has a switch that starts dropping dots and eventually the first day. There are two more switches that do this, but they drop lives instead. This level is kinda tedious. It doesn't sound like much has happened, but at this point I'm 8 minutes in. There's a lot of conveyor belts with crushers and those steam pipes I'm skimming over. Eventually I get some stable flooring and the Galaxian ship right next to the door. This time the steam is coming from the floor instead of the pipes. I had no trouble with this one. After I leave there's a conveyor with the sea at the end. I'm glad it doesn't drop me into the checkpoint. If I'd have missed the sea and had to restart the entire level I wouldn't have been very happy. Next up is this underwater area where I'm avoiding sharks and boiling pipes. In here is another chrome power up that doesn't get me much. Instead I have to navigate a load of pipes on another path to reach the M. Once I'm out, the first elevator takes me to the second A. Trying to get it does get me killed by steam though. Pressing this switch makes this boiler burst its pipes, creating a ramp up to the next area. It leads me to some badongs, it bounces me to a bell door containing the N, and then finally the goal. Glad to be out of that one. Nice music though. Third is down the tubes. First thing is to get this cherry to make a chain and a P appear back at the start. Back up the badongs and I run into the Galaxian door already. This time the ship's out in the open a bit further on. This maze is back to steam coming from pipes. The first A is also out in the open, just need to drop between these two platforms. Now, I don't mind backtracking for fruit doors containing letters, but don't make me go back a while just for some dots. In the next area I see Pac-Man Jr. in a cage, but I still don't have the key yet, so I hit this switch, turn chrome and find a C after it runs out. Instead I find this chrome power up and break open the chest below for the N. This chrome power up to get this banana, to get this chrome power up, to get this peach and the M, to get this bell and also this cherry, to get yet another chrome power up, to get another peach, to get another chrome power up, to get the A. Now to use that bell to get to the switch that makes the key appear, free Pac-Man Jr. and leave. These levels weren't bad, but the last two I feel were too long, about 20 minutes each. My son is a disrespectful little shit that won't look at me when I talk to him, and the boss is Chrome Keeper. It's a big googly-eyed robot kicking crates at me. To damage it I have to press all 5 switches down as Chrome Pac-Man and do it quick before one pops back up. Also have to avoid the magnets while Chrome or they'll just waste my time. That's it really, I've just got to do that 8 times, his pattern never changes. This leaves me at 74% and one world to go, the mansion world, starting with Ghost the Garden. After a lot of jumping over floating coffins, a blue switch creates a dot chain that takes me to a bell right above the door that gives me the P. Right next to it I drop down here and find the Galaxian ship, the door being past this row of coffins. The hazard in this one is these rotating flamethrowers. They can be a bit tricky to deal with since Pac-Man runs faster than they move, leaving me fidgeting back a couple times, and when ghosts are closing in it can be trouble. Once I'm out I find the first A floating above some coffins. More coffin jumping later I press a switch making a bell appear and get the M. Where's the C? Quit level, start again. Turns out I missed even more coffins over here with the C above them. Except I game over right after thanks to the coffin time screwing me and I got Tockman laughing at me. Another 13 minutes later I'm back to where I was. Other side of the hill has this second day in a box and the end is on this hill further on, right next to the level's goal. Thanks to the restart and game over, this one took me 42 minutes. This final bonus stage has me pressing switches to make fruit float around these disappearing coffins. You can time it right by just going in the square. Next is creepy catacombs. The P is 2 minutes in off the side here above some coffins. A switch behind a peach door opens up a hole that leads to the first A. Continuing down, the Galaxian ship is in the far back where I can't reach it. Same with the door. The switch at the end gets them all moving and it lets me get the ship and enter the maze. This one is in the dark with smaller stationary flamethrowers. Eventually I get out the other side and see the key being blocked off by a bell door, followed by the sea covered by a flamethrower. I'm honestly surprised I got that one unscathed. The bell is at the end of this crusher-filled underground section and I can go back and get that key. I find this peach and have to backtrack all over these platforms to get the M. Then after slowly making my way past these flamethrowers on an elevator, I waste that time by dive bombing into the abyss. The switch there puts dots on a bell along the flamethrowers, the bell being used to get the second A. The elevators then take me up to the top where I get a cherry, submit for the N and then the level. This one wasn't any shorter than the last few, but after the previous level taking so long, this one blew by. Last level, Grave Danger, we're getting there. On the left is a slope leading to a hole with a switch that makes a P appear. Getting on top of these thunderclouds gives me the peach to get the first A. A banana door has a switch creating a chain to a cherry getting me the C. And after a cruel section dealing with disappearing coffins and thunderclouds, I get a bell, bounce on the top of the clouds and open the bell door for the M. And really soon after, the final A is out in the open. After getting a peach and doing a lot of backtracking, this door has a switch opening up a hole to a series of switches that creates a maze and a cherry. Said cherry opens a door to another switch that creates a series of coffins to a bell. Once I leave I go back past where I got the peach to get the final letter in the game. I get the Galaxian ship behind the bell door and into the maze. This one's gimmick is that it doesn't have a gimmick, which is nice. And that's all maze is beaten and the game tells me I've unlocked Marathon mode. With that I can free Ms. Pac-Man and leave. I know I really skimmed all this level, but at this point I'm running out of things to say. I see off Ms. Pac-Man and even she won't look her husband in the eye. Time to take on Tockman.
You interfered with my plans for the last time, Pac-Man!
He walks around throwing exploding pack dots and spitting fireballs. I fight back by throwing my own while his create more for me to pick up around him. Every so often after taking damage, one of the 3 family members will give me a piece of health. For each do it only once. After taking out 6 blocks of health, he gets pulled to the centre of the arena and steps raised for me to butt bounce his head. He follows this up with his own exploding butt bounce. Hitting all 4 switches around the arena pulls him in again for me to repeat. Once I've reduced him to 5 blocks of health, he starts using his own version of the rev roll. I dodge and hit him with my own. I keep it up until he's finished. He shrinks down and opens up to reveal he's actually a white ghost called Orson.
It's so unfair. You ruined everything. Nobody loves a ghost.
You know, Pac-Man, by eating him after he pours his heart out to you and revelling in it, you're kinda proving him right. So that's the game beaten, but this photo says I have only 95% completion. When I'm sent back to the main menu, I see I've unlocked an outtakes video to beating the game. It's not that special. Now it's time to get that last 5%. Now I've unlocked every maze, it's time to beat them back to back in marathon mode. There's actually more than in the main game. Each world has 3 normal mazes unlocked from the beginning. Another detail is that in this mode, they're all zoomed out like the original Pac-Man. You use the same pool of lives remaining from the main game, which was a problem for me when I ran out on the very last set of mazes after around 45 minutes work. But I get myself 18 lives replaying Corsair's Cove, and the next time I manage it. This allows me to see the gallery of the game's concept art. This gets me to 98%, the last 2% is for beating Tockman. This does mean, however, that my save file will always say 98% since I can't save after Tockman, and that bothers me. Anyway, that was Pac-Man World. I stand by what I said last episode, it's a fine game, but it does have its issues. It was definitely getting a bit tedious towards the end, but it's still fine. It's just nice to have that closure on something I couldn't beat as a kid.